Peace, dreamers. Peace, peace. We are back at it again, and today I want to get into this Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse that we are just marinating in right now. I mean, if you have not received some sort of uploads, downloads, cosmic beams hitting you while this is happening, I don't know where you've been. I don't know how you dodged it. I don't know how you blocked it out. But this is a very powerful energy, very powerful cosmic phenomenon that we're in right now. And I just kind of want to get into, some of the uploads that I received, some of the divine wisdom that came through. And the major theme that I received when I was tapping into this Scorpio eclipse late last night, was the battle of the divine feminine versus the distorted feminine. Now, today you can't go on the internet without seeing something about the divine feminine. The divine feminine has just become this almost blanketed term that we used. If you have a yoni, you're a divine feminine. And in reality, that's not the way this works. Divine feminine energy operates within spiritual law, within cosmic law. It's, perfect in design in a way, And we've just kind of collectively started to use this term divine feminine just to describe women, to describe woman. And there's an entirely undiscussed aspect of the feminine nature, which I call the distorted feminine. And this is the part of the feminine nature that is out of balance, that is operating not within the spiritual principles and spiritual laws that the cosmos operates within. It's the part that's kind of off the rails, so to speak, right? So I want to get into this battle of divine feminine versus distorted feminine. And oftentimes when we think about war or we think about battles, what comes to mind is the masculine expression of that, the patriarchal expression that we've seen of war and battle, this very externalized, destructive, externalized, distorted thing. But when it comes to the feminine, it's always going to be internal. It's always going to be the womb. It's always going to be the darkness, the hidden recesses, because that's the feminine energy. We even see it on the anatomy of a woman. It's creation happens internally. So when it comes to feminine energy, it's always going to be internal, whether that's in balance or out of balance. And so I want to get into, just to lay the foundation of divine feminine versus distorted feminine, like what some of these things kind of look like. So I have a few things here, like the divine feminine would represent truth. The distorted feminine would represent untruths, mistruths, lies, distortion. Divine feminine would be clarity. Distorted feminine would be deception or manipulation. The divine feminine would be love. Distorted would be lust. The divine would be fertility. The distorted would be greed. The divine feminine would be flow. The distorted feminine would be force. The divine feminine would be breath. The distorted feminine would be suffocation. The divine feminine would be birth and life. The distorted feminine would be sabotage and unnecessary destruction. Because destruction is a natural part of life, creation and destruction, creation and destruction. But this is almost the sabotage of life, destruction in that sense, right? The divine feminine would magnetize divine masculine energy to her. whereas the distorted feminine would repel divine masculine energy and rather attract distorted masculine energy. This is why we have, you know, the fuckboy culture, you know, for lack of better terms. This is why we have these things that are so common, hot girls, and you know what I mean? Like, do your thing, but this is that distorted aspect of the feminine, because the feminine is always gonna set the tone. It's as within, so without. So if her within is distorted rather than divine, we're gonna see, you know, distortion in the masculine. We're gonna see distortion in the material realm, the physical world that we are inhabiting, right? And one of the last things is the divine feminine embodies emotional maturity. She has an emotional maturity. She has a way with her waters. She understands her ebbs and flows and knows how to operate in a healthy way. Whereas the distorted feminine energy has emotional manipulation, moves from a place of emotional manipulation, where instead of, you know, taking accountability for oneself, there's always a finger to blame, or there's always some, you know, way to kind of distort accountability, right? So essentially that's the basis. You get the gist of the distorted aspects of the feminine nature versus the divine aspects that we're meant to be in. And when I was tuning into this eclipse energy, what I received was that the distorted feminine is being eclipsed out so that the divine feminine can finally breathe. And this goes so deep. I may not even get into it all here because there's so many layers to it, but it's not a coincidence that, wow, this is coming through right now. Interesting. It's not a coincidence that in 2019, if we recall, in 2019, the Amazon, which is the lungs of the planet, was on fire. And in 2020, you know, we obviously experience, you know, the world catastrophe and the whole I can't breathe era, right? So this was the external manifestation of what had been happening internally. The divine feminine has been being suffocated, unable to breathe and express herself in truth and clarity, able to be a full representation of her divinity and her abundance. And so often we're quick to, as a society, especially now, point to toxic masculinity, and yes, of course that exists. This is not, you know, downplaying that in any way, but first and foremost, the feminine needs to look at the feminine in the mirror. So the distorted feminine is what's being eclipsed out with this Scorpio full moon, because Scorpio is feminine energy, it's water. So essentially what I'm receiving from this Scorpio eclipse is this internal battle that we're going to be in for essentially the next 6 months of pinpointing and discovering and, quite frankly, calling out all those distorted aspects of self. And when I was, you know, channeling and tuning into this energy, I heard, well, the album, the KOD album, J. Cole KOD album came to mind. And there's a song on there, it's like an interlude, and it says, something's got a hold on me. And that's it. What has a hold on you? What is still suffocating you? What has more control over you than you have over it? And in what ways are you emotionally manipulating yourself to make you feel and sense that it's okay? In what ways are you emotionally manipulating yourself to convince yourself that this lust in your life is okay, that this greed in your life is okay, that all these mistruths in your life are okay, right? In what ways are you dressing up the distorted parts of your nature and calling them divine? This is a time where if you don't put it in check, if you don't get it in check, you're going to be checked by this cosmic energy. The divine feminine, as she's regaining her breath, as she's inhaling and exhaling, as she's waking up again, because it's just cycles of her reawakening, so to speak. If you don't get it in check for you, you're going to be swallowed even, even deeper, even more than you were before. The distortions are not going to last. One of the other things that I received from this was alchemy. Alchemy. That's like the specialty of the divine feminine. To take one thing, to take one substance, to take whatever is there and to create something new from it, to create something beautiful. So with this energy, the only way out is alchemy. The only way through is alchemy. And I heard, what can I create with what's already on my plate? With what I have at play right now, with the tools that I have in my tool belt, with the circumstances that I have in my life, with everything as it is right now, how can I alchemicalize this and make it into something new? Make it into something great. Turn it from something distorted into something divine, right? We have to eclipse out all this distorted energy before we can fully and truly embody divine energy. And the feminine is here. She's ready to birth something new, but first we have to let her breathe. First we have to let her breathe. And ironically, it is the divine feminine suffocating the divine feminine. So we have to break out of that. And I think I'll close us off with a card. We haven't pulled cards in a while. Just to see, as we're, because we're going to be in this energy for the next 6 months. 6 months of this internal divine feminine versus distorted feminine energy. So if there's a part of you where it's just like, if something has a hold on you, that is you. We're not pointing fingers. What in you has a hold on you? What in you is suffocating you? You have to call it out. You know what I mean? Maybe that glass of wine is not necessary anymore, girl. And internally, the divine aspect of you is saying, I really want to clean it up. I really want to clean it up. That's not necessary anymore. Is what within you is still suffocating you? Are you silencing yourself? When the divine aspect in you is like, shit, I got something to say. It's time. It's time. So over the next 6 months, very interesting. Very interesting. We have gratitude again. Gratitude again. What I'm also hearing is grace again. Grace again. Sometimes I just think about how far the feminine has fallen. Even just, not even spiritually, but in this physical realm, how far the feminine has fallen. And I'm not looking into the past saying things were ever perfect at any point, but there was a time when the feminine was truly revered, respected and revered, and honored and respected. And as a society, we have fallen so far from that. And we could point blame and we could look here and we can do all these things, but look within. Are you positioning yourself, divine feminine, to be received and treated as a divine feminine? Are you moving in an air of grace? Are you respecting yourself so that that is the only energy that could come meet, greet, or engage with you? So I know this says gratitude again, but what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling is grace again, divine feminine. The distorted feminine is, she kind of down for whatever. And we've kind of accepted this down for whatever energy with the feminine principle. But it's like, no, we have to recalibrate our standards, recalibrate our truth, and tune back into the energy of grace to fully embody our power. So of course, gratitude is always going to be an essential practice, forever and always. Being in a state of gratitude, it gives an air of lightness. Here at the bottom we have creator air. You know, gratitude is always going to give you a sense of flow and lightness. But above all, grace is going to shift the paradigm that the divine feminine has kind of been waiting in, right? So I wanted to just close us out with this message, you know, close us out with a little bit of gratitude for this full moon solar eclipse in Scorpio, for us to finally eclipse out all of the internal distortions that have been holding us back and holding us prisoner internally, and then reflecting into our material external world, and come back home to our flow, to our fertility, to our breath. Breath, breath, breath. That is a huge theme at this time. Getting back to the breath. Let the divine feminine breathe. Right? So, we're in a war. We're in the battle. It does not look like what we think war and battle looks like. This is a feminine war, a feminine battle for the divine feminine to reclaim her life, to reclaim her throne, to reclaim her breath, to reclaim her heart. So soak in this energy. Discover what truths come up for you, because the distorted feminine also wants to make her truth all truth. The divine feminine knows that truth is fluid. You know, truth, there's laws and order, but the truth of the individual is the truth of the individual. There's a freedom and a fluidity, not a suffocation and an, you know, imprisonment. So find your freedom, find your truth, find your breath, and let the divine feminine reclaim her place here and now. So I love you, dreamers, so much. I hope that this served you in some way, and I will see you soon. Peace.